It's a shame that we aren't able to be together in person, but can you imagine how much worse it would be if we couldn't even do this, So I think this is the year in my mind where it's sort of the year should be tagged, pulling the blessings out, figuring out what are the blessings that we have, and despite everything that's going on. It's probably a good attitude for all of life, but certainly this year where there's so many things that are not what we would have liked, but there's blessings to be had and blessings to be found too. And it's nice to be here with all of you. So I love the title and the topic, Jewish GPS, or just JPS. We had we had a few years ago, actually, I was talking about another important, GPS stands for, I think it's Global Positioning System. That's what originally it stands for. That's all the satellites tell you where you are and where you need to go. In our house, we also have HPS, which is even beyond G, and then there's HPS, which is the husband positioning system, which is where my wife gets lost in town and she calls me, honey, what do I, right or left? What do I need to do? So I have a lot of opportunities to help to orient, and I guess if rabbis are successful, their goal and their hope, I suppose, is to put people on the right path. We talk about Jews being on the path, being off the path, being wandering, not wandering. We want to all have a good trajectory and be heading in the right direction. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. I want to talk about some ideas that might be relevant, and both philosophy and action. And I just want to state once again how appreciative I am to Gabriel and to the Kavod on the Road program. And also just want to point out, if you'd like to ask a question, please interrupt me, because I really like questions. I prefer questions to hearing myself speak. So ask away, okay? Any questions so far? So the topic that I spoke about 2 years ago, and then I guess maybe was it last year, but I feel like at the conferences, the beautiful conferences that Kavod has hosted, been done so nicely, was really about the afterlife, and I had just given a series of 10 classes, and it was based on a book, which I think I have here on the shelf since we're in my office anyway, about that title. The book is called The Afterlife. And it was written by actually a rabbi who I know. He lives in Philadelphia. He's a very well-recognized rabbi, Rabbi Kamenetsky. His father-in-law is Rabbi Kagan, the dean of the yeshiva we have in town. So he comes to town sometimes, and he even on occasion has taught some of my classes where I have a regular weekly class, and he's in town. He teaches it. So I know him very well personally. And he wrote this book after this beautiful story. The co-author, the actual author, is this fellow Jonathan Morgenstern. Again, I don't know if it's important or you could see it, but the story was like this. Jonathan, the author's father, was a student of this Rabbi Kamenetsky, and the fellow, and he was what we call in Judaism a late bloomer. He didn't get a sufficient Jewish education as a kid, but later in life he was learning more, and he was really enjoying it. And unfortunately, Jonathan's father lost at that time. He lost one of his relatives. I think it was an uncle, and he was very stricken by loss and understanding loss, grappling with loss. When God forbid person experiences loss, it calls all the big questions into mind, right? We start thinking about the bigger issues. What's it all mean? What am I here for? What's the point? Where am I going? So he started to explore those issues with Rabbi Kamenetsky. The two of them together were learning together, one-on-one. And they actually had decided to write a book about the topic. At that time, unfortunately, this fellow, Jonathan's father, himself took ill. And before they could get the book finished, he passed away. So his son, Jonathan, who at the time wasn't so necessarily so involved, he started learning with Rabbi Kamenetsky himself. And in the end, he got so inspired and interested that he wrote the book that his father had initiated. It's a very beautiful story. And it's really a book then that came out of this classic philosophical question, that we all ask ourselves. What's the real point? And what are the big picture issues? And how do Jews see the world? So they wrote this beautiful book, and then I gave a series of classes on it, and it was pretty well received. And then I published them. So if you want more, all 10 of the classes are recorded and available. I'm going to give you, we're going to talk about a lot, but if you're really interested and want to hear more and review, you could go to, there's a website called SoundCloud. SoundCloud is a little bit like YouTube for audio, for like bands and music and teachers to put up their classes and things. So if you're interested, you go to SoundCloud and type in The Jewish Experience and you'll see it. Or I could give you that information. Anyway, the topic of how to get from the here and now to the happily ever after is based on this idea, which is absolutely fundamental to Judaism, whether we may know it or not, that this world is followed by a world to come. Is a world to come. Thank you for posting that, or post that link. Thank you so much. Wonderful. The idea of a world to come, I've come to learn and to understand is not as just sort of like routinely experienced as or appreciated as it ought to be. So if we would be interested to do so, we would take a look at Maimonides' list of the 13 basic tenets of the faith. He wrote these as if to say, if you had to distill Judaism down into these fundamental, irreducible principles, these are the things that we all believe as Jews. And his 13th is the fact that there will be a world to come. There will be a resurrection of the dead in a world to come. Now, some of these things, if you haven't already learned about it and thought about it, it sounds, it sounds kind of, it could be scary. You could think of there was a movie series when I was growing up called Night of the Living Dead. Do you remember that? It was like a zombie series. I live in Lowry across from Fairmount Cemetery. So a few years ago when they were trying to drum up business, I guess they would do like movie nights. They would do Friday night movie nights at the cemetery, and you could come watch Night of the Living Dead in the cemetery. I guess that would be, they should probably show like Bambi. I would think. I think it's a little too scary to show that, but they're trying to get people. That's how a cemetery does outreach. I think they run a movie. So it could be that you start to think about these things, like the resurrection of the dead either sounds Christian or it sounds like zombies or it just sounds scary. Or I don't know what that is. It is absolutely, certainly something which is so unknown to us, so distinct from our experience. We don't have any personal experience with it whatsoever. And always something that's unknown, there's reservations about such a thing, and there's hesitation and concern. We're all automatically afraid of the unknown. So this is automatically something that one naturally, it doesn't create warm fuzzies out of the box until we think about it, right? And yet this is, it's a very much it's a given. We live our lives with the expectation that this is not the whole picture. There's more to the story. There's more to come. We're not looking at the whole thing. In fact, the movie metaphor is really a good one. In the early days of movies, it was used as kind of a way to understand this idea. Our world is a confusing place. It's sometimes we could think of it as an unjust place. We don't seem to see good people thriving. People who we deem to be wicked, we don't see them suffering. We see where's the justice? And we might think that there's no justice, God forbid, or we might think that the world isn't just. And the movie metaphor is like this. If you those old Westerns, right? So what happens if you leave the movie, if you walk out in the middle of the Western, so the damsel is tied up on the train tracks, and the train is coming, and the good guy in the white hat is too far away, and it's all over. You walk out of the movie and you think that's it. What a horrible story it was. The train ran right over her, and he couldn't save her, and the villain got away with the money. That's if you leave. That's what happens if you leave the Western movie too early. It reminds me of the old joke. What happens if you play a country Western album on the record player? If you play it backwards, what happens, right? So the guy gets his dog back and his wife back and his truck back. That's If you don't stay till the end of the movie, you miss out on the resolution, on the end of the story, and the end of the Western. So the cowboy, the good guy, the hero swoops in, and he unties the damsel off the train tracks, and he rescues her, and in the process, they capture the villain, and they get back the money, and all is well. And that's how the story ends. And only if you stay to the end of the Western movie do you see that. So too, that's the way life is. The world to come is the other half of the picture. It's the other half of the story. It's where, relatively speaking, without it, you won't see justice. You'll see confusion. You'll just see darkness. You have to have a vision that takes more into account than we're able to see. So the concept of the world being just is an extremely important axiomatic idea for us as the Jewish people. There is justice. We don't always see it, and we don't always experience it in the here and now. But justice is a fundamental concept with which God created the world. That is our fervent tradition and belief for forever. From the very get-go in the Torah, there's this idea that God created a just world. And justice means, if you'll think about what that means for a second, the concept of justice is that we get what we deserve. That's what justice means. Just deserts. He'll be rewarded justly. And everyone will get it. And for better or for worse, it's not only negative, it's certainly positive. We don't want to see someone toil and live a decent, good, positive, altruistic life by while they're alive, and then not be given compensation for that, not be rewarded. That would be a violation of justice. Justice is when people are appropriately compensated for what they do. And that could be positive or negative. It works both ways. Both of those, we want to see justice for usually for others. We're usually interested in the other people should get justice. We're not usually clamoring for it for ourselves, but we get what you deserve, and that's a positive quality that the universe has when we take into account the world to come. Is everyone with me? Do I want to pause for a second? Has everybody got get so far so good? Any questions? I'm certainly just going to give you an opportunity. Okay. Thoughts, reactions, rebuttal, questions, all are welcome. Okay. So here we are then understanding and recognizing that this world will be followed by a time of compensation, of reward, of just deserts, of justice, and all of the things that one would look forward to seeing, that we believe should happen. The justice should be meted out. It should be dished out, and we should be able to have it. So the way that this is described by the great Jewish thinkers and the voices that explain it, notably amongst them Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, was a great Italian Renaissance era rabbi and thinker, and he wrote some of the most important, just sort of clear explanations of Jewish philosophy. And he said that in order that this should work, and the world should work this way, God created sort of human history in stages, in parts. He made all of time and he broke it up into parts. There's the here and now, and there's the happily ever after. There's this world and the world to come, right? There are these two time periods. And the way that the Talmud says it is that hayom la'asosam u'lamachar lakabel scharam, which is Hebrew, which means today is to do and tomorrow is to reap the reward. So those two are different things, meaning to say there's a time for action, for doing, for decision making, and for choosing right from wrong. And then subsequently there's a time for enjoying the benefit of everything that we've done and chosen during our lifetimes. And those are different things. After a person has passed on, and we could talk about specifics and the kind of a chronology almost. A person's soul will eventually be in a place where it will be able to experience the benefits of everything that when we're alive we chose to do. But in that place, you can't do anything else. The time of doing is now. It's this world. It's a limited opportunity. What do I say that? There's a phrase for that, right? Limited time opportunity. All the sales and marketing industry will tell you. Don't miss out. Limited time opportunity. It's a sale going on right now. The world to come is available, but it's only now. And when we're after a person passes, they're no longer able to do anything. In fact, the Hebrew phrase for someone who's passed is we call them nifter. You've maybe heard that phrase. Nifter means Hebrew. It means that they are effectively, it means they're relieved of their obligations. They've got nothing else to do. It's a fascinating concept. We just looked at them as if they're like their work day is done. The soul continues to go on, but they're not here doing anymore. So the simple answer to the question posed by the title of the class today, directions from the here and now to the happily ever after is to choose and to do now. We're going to talk a lot more about what that means, but that's the basic framework. That's the basic idea. To use our time wisely. What is it that we can do to ensure that we're going to have a beautiful time after this world in which we will, if we would describe it a little bit more, and if you want, we delve more into the series and in the book about what that's like, what is it like, what would it be like to be there? It's not a very, again, it's not known to us. Nobody's ever been there and come back, so we don't have a lot of description. But it's understood by our Kabbalistic tradition as being a place of tremendous, unadulterated spiritual joy and pleasure, and it's a positive thing. It's not physical, there's no calories to worry about. You have to count calories. It's just a good place, to be, and a place where we should feel positive about being there one day. But how do we get there? And that's really the relevant point. The relevant point is, what can we do to make sure that we're there? So as we mentioned before, the great Jewish philosopher Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he also says and explains another important point, which will help us to understand what this doing while we're alive is all about. And basically explains that mankind has been given this great quality called created in the divine image. Have you ever heard that concept? Man is created in God's image. The image of God. Tselem Elokim. You may have even heard the Hebrew phrase. Tselem Elokim. We're created in the image of God. Now that phrase is very challenging on the surface to understand it, because God has no form or image. He has no likeness. He's not physical at all. There's no physicality to God whatsoever. He doesn't have legs. He doesn't have ingrown toenails. He doesn't have, a 5 o'clock shadow. God doesn't have anything physical. There's nothing there that we could resemble. What does it mean that man is created in the image of God? What's God's image? What does that even mean? It's a very interesting thing. There's lots of fabulous discussion about what that means. But the most essential definition of what that means is, it means as follows: that just like God, no one tells God what to do. He's not forced to do anything. He is a free will agent. He can decide, as it were, whatever he wants to do. There's no one's on top of God. God doesn't have a boss. He doesn't have anybody, telling him what to do, and he has free will to do whatever he wants. So too, human beings. Human beings are given free will. The element of our lives, the way that we're created in the image of God, is that just like God gets to choose to do, so do we. We choose to do. We make decisions. We are decision-making people. That's what free will really means. It means you choose. You have free will. You get to decide. No one's making the decision for you. No one's forcing your hand. That's how you're godly, how you're divine. You make the right decision. Now, I say to make the right decision because all I've said so far, you have free will, just means you can make a decision. But really, the point is to try to learn to make decisions well, to make the right decision. And we're not talking about just any decisions. So let's talk about decisions for a minute. Everybody, if you're my generation, you really will remember fondly Baskin Robbins 33 flavors. Remember Baskin Robbins ice cream places? You go into Baskin Robbins, I think they were the ones who went berserk on all these flavors. Literally 33 flavors. They put the number in the name of the place already. You had so many choices. You go into the ice cream place, all these choices, and then you could sprinkles. There's all these, so much to decide. Is that really decision making though? Let's think about this for a second. You go into an ice cream store. You go up to the counter and you decide between, let's say there was only 2 flavors, chocolate and vanilla. Is that really a free will decision? So we would say, no, that's not really a meaningful expression of free will. You choose whatever you want, it's fine. You choose a vanilla, choose chocolate. There's no spiritual impact of that decision. None. The decisions that we're talking about are decisions that I'm going to say have spiritual impact and consequences. There's something at stake here. That's significant, that's meaningful, that's along the lines of what God wants. God doesn't care whether you buy chocolate or vanilla or your tutti frutti or they used to have the bubble gum, and it actually came with the bubble gum ice cream. It was like vanilla with little bubble gums in it. You could you eat the ice cream and then you chew the bubble gum at the same time, right? He doesn't care. That doesn't matter. That isn't a relevant decision that God cares about. A use of free will is to make a moral decision, a decision that impacts others, and a decision that has something to do with God, God's given instructions, of which we have a whole book called the Torah. With God's book, the Torah, He gave us values, He gave us morals, He gave us instructions, and whenever we're involved in anything that could be relevant to one of those, now we're using free will. Now this is a meaningful decision. Now there's a moral decision being made, and this is not like a rare thing. I remember back in 1952 I made an important decision, and that this one counts for the books. This is a day in, day out occurrence, because some of those values are, are you going to be pleasant to the person, to your roommate, to your spouse, to your friend, to your coworker, to your kids? Are you going to be, are you going to use your resources and your time for someone else's benefit? Are you able to help someone else, to volunteer, to do something, to contribute meaningfully? These things go on all the time. There are mitzvahs you could sit at home by yourself and not, you can read the Shema. Saying the Shema every day is a beautiful moral decision. You chose to read the Shema and inculcate the beautiful message of the Shema into your day. There's so many things that we could do. I'm in the middle of, I hate to just go off topic for a minute, but what I'm really busy with this month of November is my Clean Speech Colorado campaign. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. I hope so. I'm doing my best to make sure everybody has. I see some nods of approval. The way that we speak to each other is governed and is guided by a variety of Jewish mitzvahs that speak to speech. That's what we, that's every time we open our mouths, it's a kind of a moral decision. It's a use of our free will. This isn't a rare thing. It's what we were made for. I just want you to understand that it's not, not everything you do. If I decide to, spin around in my chair right now, I don't think there's a great moral use of free will. But we are all able to make good decisions or poor decisions, to use our free will on an ongoing basis. And those are the to-do list of your life, in a sense. That's your to-do list. That's where your life is a footstep on its way to the world to come. That's where you're going in the right direction and you're moving along that path. And that's something that all of us can do at any stage of our lives. Whenever we can call someone up and we can give them a compliment. Can you call somebody up? Can you call after the show? You can email Gabriel and you can say to him, Gabriel, thank you for organizing the class. It was great. I appreciate it. And with that, you can earn yourself a little more of the world to come. It's an unbelievable thing. How easy is that? It takes 2 minutes, and it's easy and it's doable. And all our lives are filled with opportunities to use our free will positively. And then that's what makes us divine. That's what makes us godly. So let me take it one step further. And this is a beautiful lesson that I learned from a tremendous teacher of mine, Rabbi Moshe Lazarus. He should live and be well in Jerusalem. And he told this story of a fellow who, I'm sorry, it was himself, and I remember it wasn't somebody else. He told about himself, and I think he wouldn't mind us repeating it. He told it to me more than once in public. He used it as a great lesson. I don't think he would mind me sharing the point. He told us that he lived in Israel, and Friday in Israel, if you live in Israel, Friday is almost like a quasi weekend. It's the real, Sunday is the first day of the week. Sunday in Israel is a Monday. In America, we take off Friday and Sunday. In Israel, they don't have Sundays off. But Friday is like a quasi day off. People knock off early from work, stores close at noon, everybody goes home, they get ready for Shabbos. It's like a beautiful thing. The country shuts down Friday afternoon. So Friday morning, what he would do is he would take his children, he would pull them out of school one at a time. And on Fridays, he would take his kids and he would spend one-on-one time with them. Beautiful idea. He literally felt it was worthwhile to pull them out of school, that he should be able to spend some one-on-one time with his children. He would pull them, and on Friday, they would go do fun things. So one day, he and his son went to an art museum. It was an art museum to go see the art there, and maybe it would foster conversation, and it would be a nice connective place where they could enrich their relationship, etc. Except it happened to be that moment, the art exhibit was modern art, and he's walking around and he's looking at these paintings. This one is a big square of one color, and this one is another square with a blotch, and this one is 2 blotches. And he's looking at it and he's just like, I just can't get into it. I mean, my kids, better stuff is on my fridge than this stuff, and he found himself really just not enjoying it. And he's looking over and he sees one guy that is standing in front of this painting, like for a long time, just looking at it and enraptured by this modern art painting. And he's just looking at it. It looks like he's really enjoying it. So the rabbi tells me, he says, I walked over and I'm looking at the painting, and I for the life of me, I can't figure out what he sees in it. Like what's there to enjoy already, And he thinks to himself, what a dope that guy must be. Anyway, he leaves. That's the end of the trip with the kids. But later on, he thought to himself and he said, that guy sat there looking at that painting. He must have known what it is that he's looking at, that he could look at it and enjoy it like that. He's not a dope. He probably knows something about modern art. I'm the dope. I don't know anything about modern art, and to me, I don't enjoy it at all. I didn't have any pleasure from looking at it because I don't know the first thing about it. He's the guy who, he's having the greatest pleasure from the painting. He probably knows something about it. When you know something, you enjoy, you have pleasure from something that you know something about, right? We the more we know about something, if you've never been to an opera before, you could go to an opera. I don't know how much you're gonna enjoy it or not. But if you're an opera aficionado, if you really know it well, then you go in, you appreciate all the nuances and look at the beautiful costumes and look how well this person's saying. And I know that the act is coming up, and you can really enjoy it because you know what you're looking at. If we take this metaphor, which is what the rabbi said to do, think about this. If we're going to be going off to the world to come, And we're going to be spending an eternity, like this idea of eternity in a close, pleasurable proximity to God Almighty. What's going to make that pleasurable is that when we get there, we know something about it. We know something about God that we're going to get to spend time with in a way that we can't even imagine here. So what makes something pleasurable then is like connection and closeness, not physical closeness necessarily, but knowledge, closeness by knowledge. To be like God, to be God-like, that itself is what will make the experience of being in the world to come so pleasurable. Because we'll be in a place where we're comfortable, where we know, where we're akin, we've got a lot in common. So our goal then, in a sense, is to become God-like. And the way that we do that is by gleaning these lessons of Judaism and of the Torah, by adopting these moral values, by using our free will in a godly way to choose things like God role models for us. The Talmud says, just like he's compassionate, so should you be compassionate. Just like he's kind, so should you be kind. That we ourselves then are meant to use our free will to make decisions that we become godly. And then what we're saying is that it's not just that, that we're like earning credits, that you collect up a lot of credits and you spend your credits. You yourself become a person that when you get to the world to come, it's very rich, it's very pleasurable. It's the only place you can imagine being, because you've become so godly while you're alive. And you do that by the exercise of your free will, making the right moral decisions based on the values of the Torah over and over and over again until you get so good at it and you become so frankly, so sanctified by that act, by the process. You become a holy person. You become godly right here on earth. Not only is that pleasurable in the world to come, by the way, but it's pleasurable in the here and now. So I want to make sure that I make that point clearly, because it's not a Jewish perspective that one should suffer in this world only to be happy and rewarded in the next. It's not a Jewish perspective. Where you might think otherwise. We're good at suffering as a people. I grant you, we're good sufferers. We know how to suffer, but that's really not our point, and that's not our philosophy. Our philosophy is not to suffer. Our philosophy is to have the right perspective and to feel pleasure right now, and to live a pleasurable life, a life of joy and meaning, where you feel like you're going someplace. If a person is spinning their wheels and they don't feel like what am I doing, and what's I wake up and it's another day comes and goes and I'm trapped in my house by the pandemic and what can I do already, and it's just a nothing, then that's depressing, that's suffering. But if I feel like even here in my room I can be accomplishing valuable, eternally valuable things, I can be making moral decisions, I can be reaching out to others, I can be using my time and resources positively, I can be embodying, embellishing, and embracing the values of the Torah, then my life is meaningful, then I am making progress, I'm actually accomplishing. I'm using my time wisely, I'm on a path, I'm going in the right direction. And everybody at every age should be able to feel that way. That's what we're after. That's a real Jewish life. With my last breath, I can do something meaningful and positive. I can use my moment. I can use my life, and I can, and that is gratifying in the here and now, and eternally valuable in the happily ever after. I'm going to pause for a second and just that's most of what I wanted to share. We could certainly go on, but is there thoughts or reactions or feedback that anybody would be interested in sharing?
I have a question, and I'm not sure how to formulate it exactly, but I find what you're saying is very interesting, and at the same time, I'm struggling with it in that every year we have Yom Kippur and we atone for our sins, and every day we make moral decisions that hopefully will get us inscribed in the book. and we fall short every year. So how do we then overcome that to make it a better place when we get to the afterlife?
You know, I think I'm not totally sure I understand the question. Let me ask you a follow-up. Is the question that you know, based on sort of our Jewish celebration of Yom Kippur, we know we prepare, we know we get some forgiveness, and we make more mistakes, and we have to do it all over again the next year. So is the question that, like, how do we actually make any progress, or how do we, you know, how does it work? Is that kind of the question?
That's kind of the question, because I think, you know, for me, and I don't know if I can speak for others, you know, we do know right from wrong, and yet sometimes we still fall short. And how do we make that leap to get better at?
So and maybe this is the answer. Let me start with this. I think critically important to remember that Judaism is not all or nothing. It's not all or nothing. It's very, very, you know, every little nuanced decision, every little success, every little setback, it's all real, and it's all part of our, you know, the reality of being a human being. None of us are perfect. Nobody really gets to the finish line. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos actually says, it says that you're not expected to complete the task. Then it says, nor are you free not to work at it. And that's really the perspective, is that there are little successes to be had throughout the day, every day. And you know what? At the end of the day, you know, it's a beautiful custom. I was actually speaking about this in one of my classes this week. It's a beautiful practice at the end of the day to do a little self-review, you know, give you a little, check your pulse and say, well, how was my day? How did I do? Did I contribute positively to the world or destructively? Was I, you know, did I interact with my fellow man well or not so well? You know, how did I do? And to review. And you know what? You should be able at the end of the day to pat yourself on the back for your successes, and to say, you know what? And there are probably some things I could have done better. I'm going to try again tomorrow. And you go to sleep with a smile on your face, and you wake up with a new chance. You know, I think that's the perspective, is that it's not all or nothing, and every little bit can be eternally valued. In fact, I'll tell you, every moment of life can be eternally valuable. That's what we're meant to learn and to understand. So our last breath, every moment of life can be infused with eternal value. And in that way, a person could be, you know, a person could feel very, you could feel confident while still feeling I got more to do. So I'm just a work in progress, you know. Don't feel depressed. Feel enthused. I'm doing great, and I still got so much more to do. And I'll tell you something, as long as you're alive, you got more to do, because otherwise you wouldn't be here on this planet. If you woke up this morning and there's more that you need to do. So, you know, you have another opportunity to accomplish. And we're supposed to wake up with that attitude of, Modeh ani lefanecha, God, I thank you for giving me my soul back and giving me another day. Happy to have another day. Let's see what I can do with it.
I have a question. Rabbi Leban, for me, my Jewish education and upbringing really rarely talked about the hereafter. It was very focused on the here and now. What can we do here and now to make the world a better place, to be moral, to be ethical, and all those things. Are we talking about a leap of faith to even think about that? I'm a little troubled by being motivated by the reward concept. To be honest, it feels rather self-aggrandizing. I help me understand how in Judaism we often don't spend much time on this concept.
So there's some great thoughts. There are a couple of pieces in there I want to address to your excellent question. I'm not 100% sure why I can tell you that in sort of modern times that you don't hear as much about this. I will tell you that classically speaking, it's very much a part of Jewish life. If you look at our daily liturgy, which is thousands of years old, and we continue to, we reference the world to come many times. It's not a foreign concept. So why it's somehow, and this probably echoes my own Sunday school experience. Why, and for a lot of us, was it not somehow, the forefront of our whatever Jewish education we got? I would only venture to guess that a person should be focused on the here and now, because again, this is where it's relevant. I want to know what I need to do. That other stuff, the world to come, in a sense, will take care of itself. I don't need to think about it so much. I need to think about what my decisions are today and what my day is going to be like, and how I'm going to make today a great day. That is true. In terms of what's relevant and actionable and practical, it's to think about the here and now. However, I think that something meaningful is lost if we remove it from our consciousness. Now, I will say this: I think that what you're expressing to some degree is a good, if a lofty, attitude. And I say good but lofty because of this. A human being is essentially born selfish. Children are selfish. Babies are born with a slew of their own personal needs. And if those needs are not attended to, they will cry and make everybody's life miserable because they need what they need. And it's natural and it's appropriate that children, babies are selfish. But if a person is still selfish like that as an adult, it's a problem. The journey our life is supposed to take is to go from selfishness to selflessness, to becoming, to learn to do things not because of what's in it for me, but what's my responsibility? What's my opportunity to give and to contribute? That's what's supposed to motivate us. That's what we want to do. We're here to serve, not to take. Now that's a lofty idea, and many of us are motivated by, carrots. We'll call it carrots. Like you put a carrot in front of a horse. What motivates the horse is the carrot in front of its nose, and what motivates a lot of us is reward. We're human beings. We're often motivated by that, and it is a way that we think to motivate ourselves, that we could think about eternal reward or punishment, and that would be inspiring to us to get busy and lead our lives and work hard. Because really, if we think about it genuinely, we would be working hard at it. It would be pleasurable to work hard. Hard work and something you love and something's meaningful is pleasurable, but it's work. And you have to be motivated. It's better to be selflessly motivated. To say, for example, I'm just here to serve my fellow man. I'm here to serve God. I'm here to do the right thing for the right reasons. I'm not here for what's in it for me. That ultimately is the exact Jewish perspective that we should all strive to be at. So what you're saying is 100% right. But the truth is that for most of us, we're not there yet. And the reality is we need to keep motivating ourselves so that we keep at it and that we work hard. Making the right decisions is not always easy. And God's expectations of us are very lofty. Now, there's a lot of commandments out there. There's a lot of expectations. There's a lot to do, and you gotta be willing to schwitz. You know what it means to schwitz, Marilyn? Yes, you got to schwitz a little bit, and so that you need to be motivated for that. It's work, and therefore, it's a good thing to keep that in mind and to keep that context, even if you're until you're genuinely able to be driven by I'm doing the right thing because God said so, because not for what's in it for me. Other thoughts, questions? These are some great questions so far. Okay, so maybe we'll just let's go on a little bit further. There's another important dynamic that I think is worth sharing, and that is this. I mentioned before, the Talmud says Hayom la'asosam u'lamacher l'kabel scharam, which means today is the day to do them, and tomorrow is the day to enjoy them. Which means in this world we act, we use our free will, we make good moral decisions, we fulfill the commandments of the Torah, and in the world to come we'll enjoy the benefit. Right? We can't do anything else there. Once we get past this world, once our soul has moved on, you can't do any more. However, there's a little bit of an exception or a corollary to that, I'd say, that goes along with that, which is, you can't make any new investments, but you can still earn dividends on your previous investments. And what that means is like this. let's say, for example, that we did something that can be influential on others. So let's say, for example, we have children, we have students, we have other people we can use our time, our resources, we can teach, we can empower, encourage, or we can use our dollars to invest in something meaningful. We use our time, our resources in something, and we're investing in something. If that investment of time or energy or resources or whatever continues to have, positive product, positive outcome, it continues to produce positively in the world, even after we're not around to see it, but we will still enjoy additional eternal dividends on all the good things that we did. That's why it's important to think about every day is a day of a resource. I want to invest it in something that's eternal and that's going to leave over dividends. If you're thinking about, where to put your time, where to put your money, where to put your energies, you want to put it into something that's going to continue to bear fruit in the world. If you could, instead of just, giving out fruit, you'd plant a tree, because planting a tree will bear fruit on and on and on and on. And it'll be good for the world and good for you as well. And even in the world to come, a person can have a additional benefit from that. And that's one reason why it's important to spend our time and our resources well. If, as we said before, that this world is not a world where we're supposed to be selfishly taking whatever we can get our hands on, but we're supposed to be using all our opportunities and resources as best we can to give, to contribute, to do for the world. Just like God is beneficent, he gives, so should we be beneficent and give. And we want to choose to invest in things which are going to continue to give out fruit and to continue to have dividends and to continue to benefit people for a long time. Can set up a Jewish educational trust for your kids and grandkids, and make sure that they're, that your resource can continue to see the Jewish people well educated and involved, a fabulous idea, or support meaningful causes that are going to continue to do good things that you'll be credited for. They're going to come from you and your decisions. You contributed, you spend your resources on them. You spend your time as a volunteer. Lots of organizations need your volunteerism. Even at home during a pandemic, they'd be happy to have your volunteerism, to be able to pick up the phone and call people and talk to them and check in on them or be helpful in whatever way we can. There's so many things that we can do with our time and resources. And when you encourage someone, when you say something positive that you could brighten someone's day, and then they go on and they brighten someone else's day, and those ripple effects, all of those ripple effects are dividends on your investment of a smile, or a kind word. And you can enjoy those forever, even more and more and more in the world to come, even though you're not allowed to do more, but more dividends you can have. That's a beautiful extra, way to think about this, and certainly important for all of us. Particularly, I'll give you one example. If you are, like I mentioned before, that Clean Speech Colorado campaign, which Kavod is a proud participant in, if you could forward it along, share it with somebody, point it out to, if you found one of the daily video lessons interesting, or you watch the talk show with someone, tell someone about it, share the lesson. Somebody else could benefit as well, and you'll be credited with that. That's a positive thing you can do. Share it around. Let's get the maximum benefit out of this. Doesn't what does it cost you? A few minutes, but it could be something very meaningful in someone else's life. And even if you're not motivated by what your eternal IRA is gonna go up, so that doesn't have to motivate you. Do it for the right reasons, because that's what it means to be godly in this world. And that's what God would do. He would give, he would share, he would contribute, he would care about someone else.